Pleasant good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome again to our webinar this morning, August 24th, in our continuing JIPO webinar series. Thanks for joining us this morning. This morning, we're looking at a very interesting and exciting topic, intellectual property and non-fungible tokens, looking at the prospects for Jamaica and the Caribbean and region, and looking at, of course, some of the challenges as well, and what would need to be done to make it most accessible for our Caribbean creatives. So we want to look at those issues, looking at the financial aspects and what implications NFTs and blockchain cryptocurrencies have for creatives, as well as looking at the IP aspects as well, looking at the kind of protection, the kind of improvements in management that can be facilitated through these kinds of technologies. So very interesting cutting edge discussions looking forward to this morning with that esteemed panel of speakers with us. So thanks for joining us, and apologies for our slight late start. I am Marcus Goff, Deputy Director and Legal Counsel here at the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, JIPO, coming to you from Kingston, Jamaica here. We are, of course, experiencing one of our no movement days. So, first in the JIPO webinar series, in the at home phase, at home segment. But then you could all join us. When these discussions, of course, won't be slowed by COVID. We have to, of course, maintain determination moving forward. So we have, as I said, distinguished panelists of speakers this morning. We have Mr. Richard Davis with us, who is coming out of the US as a financial and digital asset consultant. We have Miss Joan Webley, no stranger to us here at JIPO and Jamaica, who is looking at, from a carry drop perspective, the implications of NFTs for Jamaica and the region. We have also Miss Marshall Cadogan, who is coming out of Canada, looking at some of the IP implications of cryptocurrencies and NFTs as well. And we have with us Mr. Manny Rivera from Coinbridge Partners, who will be holding forth for Andel until he comes. So we're going to go right into the discussion, and we're going to kick off with Manny. And I'm going to ask each presenter just to speak briefly, perhaps 10 minutes or so, on the key points that you want to share with our interested audience, and then we can, after that, go into an interactive Q&A session and really get at some of the final issues that we want to tackle in this discussion. All right. So thanks again for joining us, and Manny, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I'm subbing in for Andel as he's coming in from a previous appointment. My name is Manny Rivera. I'm one of the senior partners with Coinbridge Partners. We're a crypto consulting firm that started back in 2018. I'm the chief technology officer for the company. My background is in programming. So I was introduced into the Bitcoin blockchain arena back in 2014. Through a client who was actually looking to see if Bitcoin was something that he could utilize at his physical store. And through my background as a programmer, I kind of dove in and fell in love with Bitcoin and the way blockchain was going to enable, or at least what it proposed in terms of enabling people that were unbanked to become bankable. And just the way the encryption technology worked in terms of transactions, and the transactions themselves on the blockchain didn't necessarily need to be monetary. It could be communication based, which I found rather interesting. Fast forward to 2018, with myself and Del Green and another partner, we formed Coinbridge Partners, and we decided to do consulting for companies that were looking to utilize the blockchain inside of their business. And then that kind of evolved into us creating a Bitcoin ATM network that now expands across the United States through 8 different states. And we have 100 different ATM machines throughout the nation. So that's kind of my background. That's where we're at and what we're doing. I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful that you guys had me on. And that's a little bit about myself.
All right. So maybe you could share for us, Manny, just to introduce the subject, as I said, for our audience members, many of whom may not be as experienced, of course, as you are, some of the key terms and elements, of the blockchain technology, what it is, how it works, and how that connects to cryptocurrencies, if you can. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So blockchain in itself is essentially just to think for those that, and I'm going to talk at a very high level, 30,000 feet. And I'll try my best not to get too technical. I have a tendency to go down that route because of my programming background. But blockchain, for those that don't know, think of it as an infrastructure. Your computer, when you connect to the internet, uses an IP address that connects to a provider that then connects you to the rest of the world. Blockchain sits on top of that existing infrastructure and utilizes a way of writing data to essentially chained to each other. Quite literally, blockchain is, in terms of Bitcoin, are blocks with these transactions in it. And as soon as that block gets full, it gets chained to the previous block and the block next to it. So you have quite literally this chain of blocks filled with transactions. And as I mentioned, the transaction doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. If you look through the Blockchain Explorer, you could find messages written, you could find images that have been submitted. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exchange of currency, although that's what we have evolved to, Bitcoin being the application that sits on top of the blockchain that allows people to move Bitcoin anywhere in the world from one wallet to the other. So to participate specifically in any cryptocurrency, there's usually a wallet that you have to open up. And in that wallet, it generates these addresses. And with those addresses, you can send said currency. So I'll just stick to Bitcoin in this particular example. So if Marcus here in Jamaica, I'm here in Connecticut in the United States, and I wanted to send you money, I could send you Bitcoin from my wallet address to your wallet address without the need for an intermediary. So no banks, no governments, just a wallet-to-wallet transaction. And so Bitcoin, it became one of my favorites because its ability to provide a peer-to-peer transaction with no middleman and certainly no imposing fees in between. And so that's kind of the highest level of what Bitcoin and blockchain does. There is a process involved with that that helps validate the transactions called mining. And with this mining process, it'll validate the transaction through a decentralized network of computers that are found essentially all around the world. And with this decentralized network, the validation process does take a little bit of time. So when you're looking at cryptocurrency or Bitcoin specifically, and compared to some other cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin has one of the longer transaction times. But that is also being worked on. So this whole infrastructure and this whole process, there's development groups, not central to any one company, just developers like myself that are looking to make the blockchain and transaction times better by writing different protocols that you can then sit on top of the blockchain itself. And so for this particular instance to speed up transactions, there's a protocol called a Lightning Network that will help expedite the transaction time quite faster. And so Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency. It's the king cryptocurrency. There's now over 10,000 different cryptocurrencies out there in the world. My belief is about 95% of them are probably not going to do anything, but the remaining 5% that does have a strong use case for either utility or monetary transactions, there's about 5% of those coins that I believe will make it over the course of the next 5-10 years plus. And then, of course, as we start to develop things like wallets that allow you to, notarize. We talk about IP, notarizing intellectual property directly to the blockchain and essentially hashing it, where you could take that hash code, scan it over that particular blockchain explorer, and see that in fact was the document that you said you sent, or the file, whether it be a media file or a PDF file. You can review that particular hash and say, yep, that was it. And that's one of the great things about blockchain, is that once a transaction, whether it be monetary or communication, is written to said blockchain, it's immutable, which means it can't be changed. And that's one of the best things about blockchain in terms of its security, is that because of this decentralized network that validates each of these transactions, to actually hack the blockchain is almost nearly impossible, because it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole, right? You try to stop it over here on these servers, you're going to have the servers over here helping to validate that transaction. And if it does in fact get attacked and is different than the rest of the ledgers that are out there on the network, the network will reject that transaction. So sorry, I kind of opened a fire hose on you guys, but that's kind of being in the programming world, I can kind of just talk about it for days. So
No, that was good. I think that was good. So maybe just to connect it for again the right, so that in terms of the benefits, right, you would summarize it as is that certainly it makes for more transparent transactions, right, in terms of who is sold or licensed the digital asset, right, and therefore maybe more transparent revenue streams for the creatives as a result of that level of blockchain authentication that takes place, right? And then that would then make it easier for a person to monetize their digital assets in that regard, and to perhaps also cut out some of the middle players in that transactional framework, right? So these are advances using technology which can, of course, be very beneficial for IP owners in the creative space. All right. So let's keep it moving. Thanks very much, Manny. I'm gonna go over then to Richard. Right? Because we're gonna again keep it moving, keep it interactive, and ensure that we have time for all of the Q&A. So Richard is a digital asset consultant. He was born in the UK to Jamaican parents with a deep passion for arts and the financing of same. He's a ghostwriter and editor writer, as a crypto trader, investor, and educator, idea concept creator. His universe covers NFTs, non-fungible tokens, decentralized financing, and others. And his superpowers, as he puts it, include bringing out other gifts and talents, investing, trading, and tokenization of everything with blockchain technology, especially the arts. So, great. We'd love to hear from you now, Richard, to bring, as I said, the kind of technological advances with some of the financing implications for creatives in this space, and break it down for us. Thanks.
Yes, I'm wondering when you read all of that, who is that guy?
That always happens.
It's interesting.
It's all right.
So, just thought I added a little humor. So a little bit more about my background. I actually got introduced to the financial area while I was working in a corporate law firm that deals with M&A and in the finance side. So a friend of mine introduced me into trading stocks and options back in 2009. No, 2008. And then, as we know, going into the credit crunch 2009 into 2009, I actually got laid off. So I was wondering what I was going to do, but I started to learn about trading and investing. So the finance side, I started to get educated on that part. There's one thing about me, and as with everybody, what they should do is actually educate themselves on what something as new as blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. So at that time, I took it to a level of I wanted to trade for a hedge fund. Actually applied to actually trade on Wall Street for a hedge fund at a proprietary firm, and traded equities and options. Flash forward to life happening, and but learn the skills of trading and researching companies, their finances, and also trading, which I consider art with technical analysis. If you ever seen a chart called Candlesticks, if you imagine each bar as a candle as a letter of the alphabet, and as you group letters together, they form words for sentences for paragraphs, and they actually tell a story of whether a stock value is going to go sideways, down, or up. So I like that part of it. That's my background in understanding what art is, and I have a degree in a bachelor's degree in graphic design, and studied architecture too. Also, that's where my creative side comes from. But actually combining them with the finance and sticking with the finance. Flash forward to, I get an interruption here. Flash Flash forward to um, 2011 February. I actually went on my own and was trading stock options using technical analysis. And flash forward to 2016, that's when I first heard about Bitcoin, but wasn't ready to jump in as a trader and investor, and didn't understand it then. But the real education came in, uh, was it 2019 to 2020, yes, last year, where I really got more of an education of what decentralized finance is, and understand how money works too also. Now, when we hear the word decentralized finance, I'll go the opposite way to introduce you to that, is actually the centralized finance. Many of us know, as born in Jamaica, you hear, or Jamaican parentage, you hear about the International Monetary Fund. That's a centralized location of where money is actually transacted through different governments and banking institutions. Now, with decentralized finance, it's so powerful. It takes that control of your finances, actually to the individual or groups of individuals that collectively come together. And just imagine with it's DeFi, what they call it for short. If you ever heard of DeFi, um, decentralized finance, you can actually have the power to create your own financial institution. Now, as a financial institution, like a bank, like Scotia, I'll talk Jamaican terms, Scotia, or um, J, all the different banks in Jamaica. I'm trying to think. I bank with Scotia in Jamaica, but just imagine having your own bank. And these are the things that decentralized finance can do. What it actually does, it sets you up in such a way that you can do the things that the bank does, like actually lend out such a thing as your crypto with regards to Bitcoin, if you hold Bitcoin. Now, and loan it at an interest rate. So that's what these banks do. They actually, when they take your money and you place it in a bank, they actually loan out your money or invest it in something, in other products too also. So with decentralized finance, you can actually be that own individual financial institution, or build your own family financial institution. Uh, and that's the power that DeFi has. Now, as I think, and the other presenter was talking about before, how do you what actually transacts from one end to the other when you purchase either a coin or a token. Just to preempt, if I ever talk about a coin or a token like Bitcoin, this is just for educational purpose, not financial advice. I just want to preempt that too, also. But with DeFi, and the ability of what they call a smart contract, once you put it on the blockchain, or the transaction is written in a block, and that smart contract is written. Once you send money, as Anderson was talking about, from one person peer to peer, that's all due to a smart contract. There's an agreement, and it's transparent and immutable. It cannot be changed. It cannot be hacked, because so many people actually see it as in transparency, with the amount of people that actually have a cryptocurrency or a wallet or what have you, and the miners, they actually see the transaction happening, but it's also immutable. You can't interrupt that block too also. So that's the excellence of the security and the transparency and the authenticity, because everybody can see what's happening. Now now within the cryptoverse, there are different cryptocurrencies, with some of them called tokens, and some of them called coins too also. Now, many of them have CEOs, unlike Bitcoin has no CEO, is open source. So that lends itself for individual gain. Now, if anybody was pre internet, or just imagine if you was born during the internet time, before the dot-com boom, or during it, just imagine there was none. But now, in the past, you needed developers and such to actually build a website, but nowadays you can actually, this is so powerful, you can actually build your own token or coin and develop your own financial product backed by a product or service that somebody sees value in. And that's where the gains come, if you choose to go that route. So with DeFi and the many different cryptocurrencies, as Manny says, the first speaker said that many of them are going to go away, only because of the value that they may have on the product or service. So I'm sorry, I thought that somebody was calling me from there. Wondering, I was actually getting a call from somebody. I'm getting in and out. I wonder if you can still hear me. Am I being disconnected?
No, we're still hearing
It's
you.
frozen.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. So, yeah. So, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah. So, with the power of DeFi, as I said, I think I tied up there, whereby the power of having your own banking institution for yourself and your family, and everybody thinks about generational wealth, for the next generation. There are many products there. As I said before, this is not financial advice, just education. If you go to the top of who has a larger market cap meaning the amount of money that is actually invested in that particular financial product, like Bitcoin, I think it's almost $1 billion in $1 trillion in market cap. Ethereum is close to half $1 trillion in market cap. Cardano, and they all have services, especially when you lend itself in the cryptoverse to such a project as Cardano, that has a whole entire ecosystem. So attached to that could be a wallet that is under the built on the Cardano network, or even, as we Jonah will speak about, NFTs, under the Cardano network. People building smart contracts under the Cardano network, also Polkadot and such too, also as it expands. And if I compare that to maybe a Google, how they have many different products under Google, as Cardano have many different products and those services under itself, in addition to Ethereum. Ethereum is the largest that everything is actually built on Ethereum, in addition to Cardano. CEO Vitalik Buterin actually, Hoskins was a co-founder of Ethereum and started his own network called Cardano. So I think I may have covered all the examples. Is there any questions, or we'll do questions and answers after?
Yes, we're gonna do the Q&A after. I know that there'll be many, so thanks for that. Thanks for just let's say showing the connection with the blockchain, how it's also useful for transparency in financing and for the transactions and services, etc. So we're building the blocks in the discussion, to share and discuss the opportunities for the creative industries using these technologies. I want to welcome Andel. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us. Manny spoke earlier on the blockchain technology briefly.
Thank you guys for having us. Thank you guys for having us. My apologies. I had a different, something came up that was very important I have to take care of, so I had to be there. But I tuned in on my drive over, and I heard, and as I told Joan, I'm confident of the person who I have sitting in for me. So.
Sure. All right. Sure. Thanks, man. So yeah, I'm sure we'll have questions and more discussion in the Q&A. Yeah. All right. So Joan, want to hear from you. Joan, of course, brings to the discussion the understanding of intellectual property and the blockchain technologies, and we'll be tying in the non-fungible tokens, to see how all of this can be of benefit and can be a fruit for our local creative industries. So Joan is, of course, this morning representing CarryDrop, seeking to facilitate these uses and advances for the benefit of the CC and cultural and creative industry. So good morning, Joan.
Good morning, Marcus. Thank you very, very much to JIPO, my fellow presenters, everyone who is on the stream. I think, like me, you would all have been hearing this buzzword of NFT, 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 seeing these incredible prices and figures for sales that are being garnered worldwide or internationally by artists, musicians, all persons kind of jumping onto this. And so there's a lot of interest and not too much understanding around what this thing is. So I really appreciate JIPO for facilitating this platform. I am going to share my screen because I did a very small presentation. I'm wondering if I'm allowed to share my screen. If not, I'll just continue speaking, but it doesn't seem like I'm able to share it right now.
You should be able to. You should be able to.
I should be able to?
If not, can you
Okay.
please assist Joan?
I'll try it again. Okay, here, I'm getting it now. Oops. Are you all seeing me still?
We're seeing you, but we're not seeing your screen as yet.
Okay, not a problem. I will continue just, I guess, presenting while I try to figure out this technical part of it. Because I'm not able to see you at this point. Okay, here I'm seeing you now. Brilliant. Share. All right, we will not be beaten on this tech presentation. Okay, so morning everyone. Again, as Marcus has mentioned, I am here today presenting as CarryDrop, or one half of CarryDrop. My partner, Christine Coley, I see is in this room with us as well. And we are a very, very new enterprise, as new as this emerging NFT industry and opportunity. And really our first kind of mandate mission is educating ourselves as this industry continues to unfold, and educating all the persons that we hope will become a part of this. My backdrop was very definitely Caribbean, even though I know this is a JIPO talk, because in the long term, we see real success for this industry and for us as a people through a collective approach. And I'm going to go through why that is after first explaining what. Just briefly, I want to share with those of you who do not know me. I looked through the room and there's some familiar names there. But for those of you who have never met me before, Marcus did share that I used to work at the JIPO. I was the manager of copyright some time ago, one of my greatest experiences. And since then, I've gone on to be working for some almost 20 years now. Wow. That's very interesting. I've been working for quite a long time in various creative industries in Jamaica, various cultural and creative industries, be it through Jaria, Nanook, um, assisting the Jamaica Design Association, Women in Coffee, or most recently through Ganja and Itopia Life. I've been really, really concerned and just focused on how Jamaica can benefit, because it seems obvious that we as a country should be doing better. And my recent search has really led me to believe that the cryptoverse is going to be a big part of that solution. So the first thing I'm asking anyone on this stream to do, if you do nothing else from what I said, is please go to CarryDrop and download this white paper. It is a short 20 pages where all of the goodness has been explained and explored in a way that's very concise, very simple, and should hopefully make this very, very relevant to you. Before I go into my presentation, I'm just going to, I guess, show you some of the headlines or some of the figures that I'm sure attracted many of you to this talk today. In recent months, we've been seeing some really incredible figures. We see an NFT being sold for 69 million at Christie's. This is digital artwork. We hear that this meme of Disaster Girl has sold for 2.9 million. And as you're seeing, there are different types of artwork. There is something that's very pixelated like this, a CryptoPunk, part of a collection that sells for what this was 11.75 million. And then there is a photograph. So it's different forms of artwork are being sold in this space, and different and incredible prices are being fetched. And one of the things I definitely want to make sure I do today is make sure that I dispel the myth that this is a get rich quick scheme. This is not a Ponzi scheme. This is not a instant win for anyone, but it is, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of my fellow panelists, an inevitability. As we see most recently in Jamaica, even, I think in September, they'll be beginning the digital currency pilot program, September through December. So we see that even our government is trending in this direction. Governments worldwide are trending in this direction. And whilst we are a little bit late to the party as a Caribbean region, the party has still just started. So it's still very much time for us to become aware. So my job today is to help you to do that. The first thing that we've done at CarryDrop, as I mentioned, is to create this white paper. It's available for download. And one of the, I suppose, the objectives is really to explain what the cryptoverse is, how it works, what's happening in it, and how we benefit. So this is what you'll find in this paper, these short 20 pages. Today I'm going to more, I suppose, that how I can draw parallels to make this more relevant for you, draw real world comparisons to what's happening in the cryptoverse. But before I go there, let me just define what an NFT is. So an NFT, of course, it's an acronym. We love those in the islands. It's a non-fungible token. What a non-fungible token is actually a token, as has been explained by my fellow panelists, that is unique. It cannot be traded identically. So it's not like when in fiat currency, $1 is $1 is $1, and we chop and we change them. But non-fungible tokens are unique. None is the same. They all have a different, even if they may appear the same on outwardly, they all have a different code. And so in that way, you'll find that because they've been coded on the blockchain at different times, they're different hash, as has been mentioned before, they're unique. And the value that's attached to them is also unique. Terms like NFTs, drop, blockchain technology, all of this are again defined in this white paper. So if anything slips you, this is the place to head back to. But making it more relevant. So as intellectual property owners, there'd be many of these things that you'd be aware of and be struggling with day to day. In my work with the music, the film, the art industry, we share certain common challenges that the cryptoverse helps us to overcome. And blockchain, with its immutability and the transparency, helps us with our first major issue in creative industries, which is trust. The fact that everything is minted and it's there and it's easily viewable by anyone removes a lot of the suspicion that ordinarily surrounds our cooperation and our commercial activities. But something that you can actually directly relate to. So proof of ownership, right there at JIPO office is the digital copyright registry or a trademark registration. These are different ways in which traditional intellectual property ownership is proven. And for anyone who is involved in the commercial use of intellectual property, we know that you want to have proof of ownership. In other words, if you're just writing poetry for fun, that's fine. But the minute you decide you want to make a living from this, you want to start writing films or you want to start doing music, we always strongly suggest that you get actual registration of copyright, this digital certificate to prove your ownership. In the cryptoverse, something very similar, it's not intellectual property ownership, but something very similar is given to the owner of an NFT when they mint or burn a digital piece of artwork onto the blockchain. They're given a digital certificate of authenticity. So that's a parallel that you can see. And when an NFT is sold, that digital certificate of authenticity is what transfers along with it. So you can show that it's authentic and it's actually original and unique. Now, smart contracts is something I'm sure everyone would have heard about if you've heard NFTs and done any sort of digging. And this is another one of the great advancements, I believe, that happens in the cryptoverse. For the attorneys on board, I am that you cannot actually read a smart contract in the traditional way because smart contracts are better likened to dumb computer programs. It's smart in that it's a programmable function that the computer carries out automatically. So information is inputted by the programmers, the persons that burn or hash or create the NFTs, and then once it's sold, there are certain automatic functions that take place, like how you have a smart house or that sort of thing. So when we say smart contracts, they happen automatically. This is something I think is a real advantage for people in the creative industries, musicians, artists. We all know how difficult it is to get documentation done at times. And it's great to know that it's almost seamlessly intertwined into the facilitation of business. The blockchain is facilitating and creating these contracts and creating a documentation stream. Again, people in the cultural and creative industries struggle with being able to document what's happening because we're busy creating often and creating the commerce. So it's great to know that blockchain facilitates all of this. Now, as I mentioned before, it's not a get rich quick scheme. Not if you go onto the NFT marketplace, you'll see that many people are already there. As I mentioned, the party has started and the world is there. So there are many pieces there. And as with the traditional art market, curation matters, reputation matters, but you are also free to set your price. And that transfers to the NFT world. So when I'm speaking about curation, what I want you to set your mind to is I'll give a few real world examples, again, using art. If you're an artist and you paint, you own copyright in your artwork, yes? And when you sell your work, you are able to decide whether to sell it just as a one-off piece, or you're able to decide whether or not you want to sell it as a couple of prints. You want to make some prints, you keep your original piece and then sell copies of it. Or you can decide to do any manner of thing with it, license it for adaptation into a comic book, etc. NFTs allow you to bundle different rights or opportunities to works. So you're actually able to even retain ownership of your original work and be making sales off of the NFT digital files of the work that you have made. These are the opportunities and the flexibilities that made me and I think others very excited about this industry that's just starting. And I think that in years to come, we're going to be seeing a lot more activity happening in this space as people find new digi-physical, they're called, not just digital, but digi-physical bundles to be able to sell as NFTs. Most recently, we saw Trevor Noah. A lot of people might recognize the name, late night comedian, talk show host, who sold tickets to his shows as NFTs. And I'll go on to tell you why in a minute. But before I do that, I also want to highlight another benefit of the cryptoverse that's really important for Caribbean creators: market access and lack of fees. So what I'm speaking about is the ability to be able to access a worldwide market, just as you do with the internet, but with even less transaction fees than you may encounter otherwise. This is incredibly important, particularly in times like these when there's so much virtual activity and we're seeing so many more threats of lockdown and lack of freedom of movement. It's great to know that there's a space. And, we're speaking about NFTs here. We may not get to touch on metaverses and all of these other dimensions that are expanding, but it behooves us as Caribbean people to become aware. And I think one of the number one reasons we should become aware is because of this last point I'll raise: royalties. Royalties, royalties, royalties. Now, those who are music creators would be very familiar with this. And I suppose some artists, if you live in the UK, may be familiar with royalties. But for many fine artists in Jamaica, you have never been able to benefit from royalties. Many fashion designers have never been able to benefit from royalties. And I could go on, but my point I hope is made. In NFT world, when you create a digital file or an NFT and put it for sale, you're actually able to choose whether or not you would like to retain a royalty on the resale of that NFT. And that's in perpetuity. Or, in other words, I mean, take out the legalese, that's forever. So, if I create an NFT today and in 10 years and I sell it, and over the years I become a very reputable artist, my work becomes more appreciated, the value of my work increases. As persons resell my NFT, if I had indicated that I want to choose retain a royalty and I can choose between 10 or 30%, at that point I would continue to earn as my original work is resold. And this is something that I think brings real justice to creatives and is a real opportunity, as I mentioned, for all of us in this space. So that's me drawing some parallels. Before I go to how to get started, I actually wanted to just look a little bit closer at the music industry with some use cases to show you how this is being used and what kind of things we need to pay attention to. I'm not going to go too much in depth because I know Marsha is next to speak about IP, and IP is again covered in this white paper at www.carrydrop.com. But it's interesting to see that already this year alone, we've had so much movement in music and NFTs, because NFTs started as an art, as digital art, and it's already evolving, and we're seeing the other creative industries coming to bear. So the music industry has stepped in, and many may be aware of the dispute between Dame Dash and Jay-Z and Rockefeller. He tried to sell his ownership of the rights to a famous album, and there was some dispute as to whether or not he had the right to do so. I'm only introducing this example not to dig into it now. I'm not sure we have the time, but to raise the fact that real world legal contracts will come to bear and will need to be considered when someone is developing an NFT. Whilst I haven't spoken to Dame Dash directly, I do believe there was a way for him to do this. I'm not sure that the way it was done was the best way, and that's what's going to be important. I'm highlighting that strategy is key when you're going into this NFT space. Those as well as for those who are starting from scratch and are really building a reputation. I draw the example here of Basie and Tough Like Ion. Basie, of course, from TOK fame. He's now an independent artist, and he has released. He was the first Jamaican to release an NFT music project. He was able to do so because he owned all of his masters as an independent artist at the time, and so that's a factor that comes into play, and something that music players wanting to get involved in NFTs will have to pay attention to. Tough Like Ion, she's a Trini, but honorary Yadi as well. Caribbean people doing great stuff. She has been very active in this NFT space. She has taken the approach of actually bundling artwork with her music, T-shirts with her package. She has done NFT dub plates. So she's a real innovator in this space, and she's having fun with it, which is what I'm looking out and looking forward to our creatives doing. At 3 here, I share Audius versus Emanate. This is just a giveaway for those of our music audience who are there. These are two platforms that are emerging for NFT music. We are yet to see who's going to be the real dominant force. Audius has just inked a deal with TikTok, meaning that you can put your NFT music on Audius and then access it on the TikTok platform. So that's a great thing, but you don't earn in Audius. So that's not a great thing. Versus an Emanate platform, which I believe is slower to the market, but they're building a platform that your NFT music will pay you every 6 seconds, I believe, as it's being streamed. You'll immediately be earning. So these are the things that are great. You'll immediately be able to see what's happening, and blockchain facilitates that with its transparency. And then last but not least, Waka Flocka. He has been at the forefront of this. I am so impressed with this young man. I may not get the music, but from the vegan lifestyle to his adoption of NFT, he has me respecting him a whole lot. He has just released a game. So it's an NFT game where he has actually combined his music and cannabis. So if persons here are familiar with Farmville, Waka Flocka now has a game where you can grow ganja, and his music is intertwined, and NFTs facilitates that. So again, an innovator in the space, showing how animation, gaming, all of these various industries are coming together. I have Jerry and James C here just to shout out those persons who have helped me in learning more about the industry on the way. But it's these experiences make me believe that this is really something that needs to be paid attention to, having a firm understanding of the challenges that we face. So how do you get started? Because I know I must be short on time now. I'm just leaving 4 quick tips before we go into quick Q&A. My one quick tip, I think I've said it every page, but it deserves to be said. Please go to www.carrydrop.com and download this white paper, 20 information. Your second tip, Google OpenSeas. If you don't like the way that we at CarryDrop wrote about it, then I would strongly suggest that you Google the NFT Bible. This is something that has been created by OpenSeas. I believe it's about a year or so, 2 years old. Download it and read. The information is there for free. It's a little bit more dense than what we have prepared, but dense is good for persons that really want to understand the industry you're becoming a part of. I would then encourage you to go to platforms like OpenSea, Rarible, Mintable, and just browse around. Have a look at what's there. Start to have an understanding of what are collections, what are wearables. Um, Begin to familiarize yourself with the language and the community. And that leads me to my last tip: 4, find forums. You have to learn how to earn in this space. The truth is that this cryptoverse is new digital financial frontier. It's new land, but it is our future. And I think that, back in the past when we were a colony, we weren't really able to become, we were slave, we were enslaved. We weren't able to become a part of shaping how things developed or how commerce developed or how copyright and all of that developed. But right now with the cryptoverse, it is really just ourselves that are stopping ourselves from being a part of it. It's mental slavery we need to get over. And I really hope that my presentation and the rest of the presenters assist you in finding this a little bit more accessible and something you become a part of. I am gonna stop sharing my screen now and
Cool.
turn it back
Cool.
over. Have I stopped properly?
Yes, yes. Thanks so much, John. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Yeah, really good to see your work on it and get your perspectives on it, and of course share the regional opportunities too, right?
Okay, thanks.
So yeah.
Can I just say, Marcus, I'm sorry. Thank you for mentioning that. I had the flag and I mentioned it at the start, but I really do want to stress that whilst we have our island pride, in the long term, this space is going to work when the Caribbean comes together, when the diaspora all over the world, the Trinis, when the Trinis there, when the Grenadian, Bahamians, like all of us, Haitians, all of us need to link arm and reconnect it to our respective yards. And that is when we will really have success in this cryptoverse, because um, decentralization is great, but so is community in this decentralized space. And I will leave it at that because I'm anxious to hear from Marsha as well.
Right, right. I mean, I think, we are making strides along, or towards that direction. Certainly the central bank, the digital currencies in the region, that we've seen in Bahamas and Eastern Caribbean, and in Jamaica, right? Just this month, we saw the first batching of the digital currency by the BOJ. Then even though it's not
Excited?
decentralized, it still, you know, possesses some opportunities that I think need exploring along the journey towards more full of, blockchain and that kind of engagement. So definitely regionally,
Absolutely.
there's movement in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's been interesting.
Mm-hmm. Right. So thanks, John. I'm gonna go over to Marsha, right? So, as John said, looking at the IP aspects, how it ties in with the blockchain technology to create opportunities, then we're now going to hear from Dr. Marshall Cadogan. Um, Marshall is an intellectual property lawyer, uh, founder of Cambridge Consulting, and MSc IP law based in Canada. She had done a fair amount of work and research and presenting on this aspect as well. And of course, as a Jamaican too, working in the IP spaces in the US and the North American. We welcome you here as well to share with us just your perspectives on what this really is and what are the IP opportunities and challenges that you see. So, morning, Marshall.
Hey, morning, Marcus. Morning to everyone. It was so great just sitting here and listening to everyone talk. I enjoyed Joan's presentation and Richard and Manny as well, and it's looking forward to hear from Andel and just to have a really great lively discussion. So I do have a slide, a PowerPoint, and I was thinking, should I share my slide or should I just talk? But you know what? I'll just share my slide, and I probably won't get through everything because I do want to make it not boring and as much as interactive as possible. So bear with me while I find my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. So my talk for today will focus on intellectual property and trade considerations at the international level that needs to be taken into account when we talk about commercializing NFT or even looking at NFT from the perspective of innovation and the sustainable development of Jamaica, the Caribbean, or any country for that matter. And I say any country because it is as markets become more saturated and we need to find a way to differentiate our goods and services, we're looking online. And so markets are very much globalized. At the same time, although NFT is a part of the blockchain platform, uh, it is still internationally unregulated, so to speak, even more so than Bitcoin itself. And these are just a few of the considerations that we have to bear in mind. So I've kind of, positioned two questions that we should think about when we're talking about NFTs and blockchain technologies going forward. And this is the example of what type of copyright laws apply to foreigners when they uh, upload their NFT on a platform that's located in one jurisdiction? Are they subjected to the copyright provisions of that specific jurisdiction, or does an international law treaty apply, such as the Berne Convention or so on? Now, what happens? So in this example, Jay and Alice, this is just fictional, but it's very much, it can happen as well. Jay and Alice are nationals of Aruba, and they've teamed up with another person who lives in Eritrea to develop an online game that has become successful. They're interested in making trading card NFTs. The the platform for the NFT is located in Denmark. Where is the country of origin? Now, I'll talk about the country of origin. This may be in the domestic legislation, the copyright legislation. If not, it's rooted in the Berne Convention, which I will talk about a little bit. The other example talks about what if you're you're a performer and you've minted an NFT that includes some type of audiovisual element. Is this protectable, and to what extent? And do the performers who are in that video, that clip, do they have any rights post sale? I'll discuss a little bit of integrating NFT within an IP strategy, the main issues when you're monetizing your NFT, and as well as the little tips and cautions for minters and NFT buyers. I do provide a lot of consultation for persons who work in the NFT sector, but apart from this, I also do voluntary work with the ISO, which is the International Standards Organization for Standards, for the development of standards for smart contracts and also for blockchains and DLTs. Whilst I cannot talk about what goes on into developing these standards on the international level, because I do practice in the area, I can give you little tips. So I'll try to do so during the few minutes that I have with you. Now, as Joan has said, and as everyone else has said before, NFTs do give you that opportunity to leverage your existing goods or service offering, your art, your paintings, or even audiovisual performances. And so, to this extent, from an intellectual property perspective, you can think about it as one, you're generating and sharing content that embodies some type of proprietary interest. Secondly, you're gaining income from merging your product or your service. So, because it doesn't have to be from the creative sector, it could be a trademark oriented product. So you're diversifying then your existing revenue stream. Another way to look at it, which was covered before, is it's also another way of you gaining market access to countries and markets that you never had access to before. In that sense, it's a commendable innovation. You know, it's something that can be used to leverage your intellectual property. Now, for NFTs, you want to think about you want to think about IP ownership from the perspective of validity, authorization, and if it's in regards to copyright oriented works, is there authorship in the work, right? Because if it's not, if it's not protectable, if there's no copyright interest in the work, then you won't be able to generate as much or any IP interest from it. When I talk about validity, we're really talking about, do you have the IP clearance to be uploading or even creating the NFT art or audiovisual work, which is being minted as an NFT? Now, in this respect, the responsibility has to be shared between the artist and the NFT platform itself. You want to think about, is the work, is it registered? Is it registrable? Is there an existing license in terms of associated with this type of intellectual property? And what does the existing licensing agreement say? If you're uploading the work to the NFT platform, you have to ensure that your existing licensing agreement is not misaligned with what you want to do in developing this NFT or offering this NFT out there on the market. The other thing you have to ensure, and this goes back to the platform itself, is it's not sufficient to say, if you're creating or uploading this particular artwork, we have your assurance, you're ensuring us, you're guaranteeing that this particular IP is valid, that you have the authorization to upload the work. That's not sufficient. The platform also has to take some responsibility in ensuring that authorization is there. Because what you don't want to run into is a problem of infringement. The other thing, which I'll briefly mention because I know that we don't have a lot of time, is authorship. Now, there is this convention out there that most countries have signed on to, but other countries have not. Some countries which have not signed on to the agreement includes Aruba and Eritrea, and a few other countries, including St. Martin, are not parties to the Berne Convention for the protection of literary and literary and artistic works. And this goes to that convention sets out minimum standards for the protection of copyright works. It lays out standards of protection for manuscripts, dramas, music, and so on. And it does say that authorship rests in a person. So it cannot be a computer program, or in this case, an AI or machine learning related work. So the NFT platform has to ensure that there is authorship in the work, meaning it cannot rest in a computer, but it must subsist in an individual. The screenshot shows a work from Art Blocks, and if you notice right here, it says defined by the artist. And the reason why that is noted, or one of the reasons why it's noted, is that if it doesn't say, if there is no human authorship in the work, then there is no copyright interest that can subsist. But I must say, even for this, there is a qualification, because there are some soft laws in some jurisdictions that would say it is possible for computer-generated works to have authorship in copyright works. For example, in the creation of music or in the creation of even digital art. So that's something to follow. Another point, too, that is not covered anywhere in international copyright law is the publication of works. So it could be music or any type of literary work or so on the internet. Now, every country, the foundation of every country's copyright law is based on the Berne Convention for the protection of literary and artistic works. And this is a very old convention. It's from the 19th century, like 1883. And it does say that published works are those, notice that it says published works means works published with the consent of their authors, whatever may be the means of manufacture of the copies, and it goes on from there. But note the second to last or the third to last sentence. The communication by wire or the broadcasting of literary or artistic works shall not constitute publication. So remember the Berne Convention, it came about at a time when the internet was not around. Everything was being shared or disseminated through physical copies, really manuscripts. So if we were to take this Berne Convention very literally, how and when are digital movies, how and when is music or even NFTs published? And the publication date is very relevant because it may determine whether or not you can gain access to infringement rights or remedies if your work is infringed. Now, this is not a case, it will not be a challenge for persons in most jurisdictions, but if your work is being commercialized in the US, you may have a challenge there. Because the US, while it doesn't say that copyright registration is mandatory, there is no formality for copyright to subsist in your NFTs, right? However, the US law does say, this copyright legislation does say, that if you want to bring a civil action for infringement, then your work needs to be registered. And so in the US, registration is a formality, and it's, if you're thinking of, say, you've uploaded your NFT from a country like, say, Aruba, and it's never been published before, the first time it hits the internet, you wonder what happens. Does it mean that it's published in every single country? Which law applies should something go wrong? Now, the Berne Convention say, if you're uploading your NFT from a country that's not a part of the union, once it goes online, it is published simultaneously in every single country. Literally, if you think about that very practically, you're thinking, well, that does not make sense. Which country's law apply for copyright protection to subsist? Because the convention also says that if I'm a resident of Jamaica, for example, and there is a copyright infringement to my work, I'm not relying on the Berne Convention. I'm relying on Jamaica's copyright law. However, if I'm a foreigner and my copyright is infringed, for example, an NFT in Jamaica, I'm not only relying on Jamaica's copyright law, but I can also look to the Berne Convention if there are inconsistencies between the two laws. So the country of origin issue impacts NFTs from the perspective that if the domestic law in any jurisdiction is lower than those that are in the listed in the Berne Convention, you may have issues. And the issues, it's very technical, but the issues, I won't even go into all of this, but the issues that you may want to consider are one, the artist resale royalties. Joan touched on this, and I'll go a little bit further. What the artist resale royalties means is that once the painter, or you're drawing, you're painting, you're sculpting, or so on, it is sold initially. And if say, for example, to an auction or to a dealer, then once the dealer resells that specific work, then you as the artist have the right to royalties from the subsequent sale of the work. And from the perspective of NFTs, it would mean that you have a right to collect royalties to a certain limit, so it's a cap, on the resale of your work. Now, the Berne Convention, again, the foundation of this is the Berne Convention. And the Berne Convention says, okay, this right does exist. However, countries have the discretion to either mandate this law or not. Most countries have not mandated this law. So you'll find that in the EU, it exists, right? And also in the UK. You'll find that it does not exist in Canada. You'll find that in the US, it does not exist. But in California, there is a bill to say that seeks to recognize this right. Now, bear in mind that the NFT platform, its objective, because it's on the blockchain, is to bypass institutions, right? So you're bypassing banks, you're bypassing even IP offices, you're bypassing anything out there that is mainstream. So I am aware that there are NFTs, there are smart contracts, and actually codes written within those contracts that say that artist resale rights are there, and the creator or the NFT creator would have access to these royalties. But from the perspective that if something goes wrong and you're trying to, you bring a dispute involving the inability to collect these royalties, and you're looking to the court, you're not going to find that you may find that the court, unless there is actually evidence to the contrary that will assist you, it will be very difficult for you to obtain these royalties unless the NFT platform is located in jurisdictions that have these laws. And I'll go into the smart contracts a little bit. I know that I'm running out of time. So very quickly, another international treaty that is relevant when we talk about NFTs is the Beijing Treaty on Audiovisual Performances. It's very new. It came about last year. There are 42 countries that have signed on to the treaty, but not all of these countries have ratified the treaty. So it's not enforced in all countries. It was signed, Jamaica has signed on to the treaty. The US has signed on, and other countries as well. But in Jamaica, the US, it's not yet enforced. Countries that have this treaty in force include Switzerland, Japan, St. Vincent, Trinidad and Tobago, and Belize. What this treaty does, it's actually very important, and what it does is it provides rights to performers who upload or they have their works on, think about a music video. So usually you have these domestic laws. So within the copyright law itself, or within an IP treaty, think about the WIPO Copyright Treaty or the Rome Convention that gives rights to songwriters and to sound recordings and so on. That provides that you have right to govern how your work is shared, how your work is sold or licensed or so on. So this treaty gives right to performers, so not just the front person on the scene, but also even to backup dancers or singers who are involved in regards to how the work is commercialized downstream. I have yet to see an NFT contract, meaning the Word version that has implemented any of these provisions. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out in the future. And so if you're uploading an audiovisual work, you're not going to be guaranteed, remuneration downstream. Think about the artist royalties that I spoke about, remuneration downstream on any of your work. So unless it's in the contract or you have a lot of bargaining power, there's no guarantee that you will get anything on this going forward. Very quickly, Marcus, I know I'm running out of time. Very quickly on smart contracts. As was said before by the other members of the panel, the smart contracts, it is this automated, it's executed automatically on the blockchain. They are codes, but of course there's a background to the development of the code. What goes in, because there are no lawyers involved, right? So it's set up to bypass intermediaries such as lawyers. So you don't have that chance to actually negotiate any of the terms. So for the creator or that person who's interested in minting an NFT, you got to be careful as to what you're electronically signing on to ensure that it aligns with what you truly want. Now, again, because it's set up to bypass institutions, you'll find that there are alternative dispute resolution clauses within the smart contract that says, in the case of dispute developing, you're not going to the courts. You're going to be doing arbitration or mediation. Usually, it would say arbitration, and because it's very pro developer, the developer will choose which jurisdiction they want to be that seat for the arbitration, meaning which country's laws or laws governing arbitration they would like to apply. And so I would say tips for mentors: try to ensure that should a dispute arise, that arbitral award can be enforceable in a foreign jurisdiction. I've noted a site at the bottom of the screen where you can go on this site and see the members who have signed on to the recognition and enforcement of foreign arbitral awards. That means Jamaica is a part of it. Most countries are a part of it, but then again, some countries are not. So if you're a developer and you're thinking about strategy, you could say, okay, your platform is open up to these countries, that are listed within this convention, and not open up to countries that are not. That's the strategy right there. Very quickly going forward, you want to think about ownership and the validity of the content that you're putting out there. Ensure that there is valid, the IP is valid, authorization is there as well. I didn't touch on FTAs, the IP provisions of FTAs and what these could mean for NFT, but we could talk about this later in the discussion or at another time. And I'll skip the third one because I explained it before. And if you are thinking more not just on the creative side, but say you're a trademark intensive firm, for example, you're a food and beverage producer and you want to get into the NFT market, think about your existing licensing agreements that you have with your licensees, and ensure that any provision that you offer out there to buyers of your NFT does not disconnect with your existing strategy. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. A lot to think about there, but some key IP aspects, that we must, as usual, as always, bear in mind. To ensure, again, proper rights management, right, in this environment as well. So just to share that, as regards the Beijing Treaty, we are making strides to incorporate the provisions in the law. We did sign, but haven't yet put it in the legislation, and so we are in the process of doing that now, as we prepare for us to ratify. But certainly we are definitely committed to strengthening performance rights in the fullest and ensuring that audiovisual rights are a part of that for sure.
That's
Okay,
great because not
so
many countries have done so. That's awesome.
okay, all right, all right. So it's time for question and answer. We would love to hear from you all. I do see some questions already typed in the chat, so I'm gonna just direct those. So I see a question there was that Joan, doesn't fiat currency have a unique serial number that makes it unique?
Great question. And yes, it does have a unique serial number. I suppose what makes it less unique is in the user aspect of things. So, in other words, it's completely tradable. $5 will always be accepted as $5 everywhere it goes. However, with the unique element of the NFT is kind of like real world art. What will be worth 200 million to one person will be worth nothing to someone else because it's a very subjective, it's more subjective than an objective value that's attached to it. That's really the distinction I was trying to make there. I hope that explains it. And it's not necessarily as easily transferable, you know. A better example is the first tweet that was sold, the first tweet of people. It would be impossible to have another first tweet because that is just the first tweet. So it's not possible to have an identical top copy of that NFT, and most NFTs are that way. So with various levels of distinction, I suppose.
Okay, okay, I understand. All right. I see a question here asking if I am a filmmaker who wants to sell a 10-second snippet of my movie as an NFT, but one of the actors in the snippet does not want this NFT to happen, and the actor stopped me from creating the NFT, or do I, as the creator of the work, have the autonomy to decide the NFT is happening no matter what? So I don't know. You want to ask that, Marsha?
Marshall.
I like that question. It's very practical and very possible. So it goes back to the contract, right? That you have with the actor, right? So the actor is not may not be that main. And if you think about the IP content, really, usually there are agreements, different types of agreements that you sign with different stakeholders who are being involved in the film, right? So one of those provisions could say, going forward, if you're thinking forward looking, future future focus now, if you're thinking about cryptoverse and so on, is you could say that the actor does not have the right to prevent the the um the actor doesn't have the right to prevent you from doing this going forward, but you frame it in such a way that it allows you to monetize your IP on different platforms. So I would say go back to the agreement that you signed with that person, but usually the actor would not be able to prevent you to do so unless they had another type of interest, a more controlling interest in the work.
Right. So that's where the IP considerations start, right? From the very
Yeah.
contractual stage, you
Yeah.
have to make sure all these things are properly provided for.
Right.
May I add one? I
Sure.
agree with Marshall wholeheartedly. And as their attorney, I would also just be making sure that their whole chain of title with that film is stitched up. Like once they, as the producer, are the clear owner, and that actor agreement didn't have anything, then Bob's their uncle. But I agree with you 100%, Marshall.
Right. I see a question asking about what are some things to expect from the upcoming pilot. So I'm not sure what that question is referencing in particular. I'm not sure if that's talking about the JIPO project that we are currently undertaking, looking at increasing access to financing. If that's what's intended. I'm not sure.
I
But
think the digital currency may be what they're talking about, Marcos.
the pilot, which pilot is that?
The BOJ is piloting the digital currency starting in
Okay.
September until the
Right.
end of December. And
Right.
I'm not
Right.
a part of it. I would love to be, but what I understand is that they are
Yep, I would
starting.
love to be too.
Yep, they're rolling out with NCB. They've chosen one bank, and
Mm-hmm.
that bank is going to be starting with its friends and families. So some employees, some staff members, and I suppose privileged or trusted bank clientele will be the first ones that this digital currency is released to. There's an allotment; it will be released to those persons, and I believe they will be the first ones to then, between September and December, be utilizing this digital currency online, and before it's hopefully rolled out. I wish Jamaica a lot of success. And again, shameless plug, information about other CBDCs that have tried and failed is in the Cryptoverse paper at www.carriage.com.
Yeah. Right. So yes, the BOJ has just started. Just did the first minting. No. So yeah. So it's that pilot. I see. Yeah. I mean, as we're saying, it's not the decentralized, but certainly it's a step in the right direction, right? It's definitely a plus. I think moving to digital currencies has been on the landscape for a while. So we've got the CBOJ moving in that direction for sure. Where do we start if we want to start using NFTs with our content? What strategies do you recommend? I don't know who is best suited to address that one.
Um, I had touched on it. I don't
So yeah,
on
is
my
that something
last
that I can
slide.
ask?
I certainly recommend persons do, as we said, read the paper or the NFT Bible that OpenSeas has prepared. I really think that before throwing anything into a marketplace, it's good to learn about the marketplace. So I would really suggest going to OpenSeas, going to Rarible, going to Mintable, going to Foundation, going to finding out about these spaces even in Clubhouse or on similar platforms. There will be many rooms, so you can just really start to listen to other artists who are working in this space and start to have an appreciation for it. And really, it's very much like the traditional art world in that way, in that no one knows. Not no one knows, but there's a lot of subjectivity. So some things may be minted and sell today, and other things may take 6 or 7 months to sell, depending on who is doing it and who knows about who's doing it, marketing, positioning. It's very much like the real world in that way.
Good point.
Right.
May I add?
Sure.
And also I want to add to that, as she says, you have just go ahead and just collaborate with everybody, because they're very open, they're welcoming, they love to help you. And so just go create friends, create collaborations, create a market. So when you come with yours, you have already these connections who help you to push your product out and get you going.
May I add a point or two?
Sure, please.
Good points by Joan and
Yeah, I
too.
Can we have Marsha and was that Richard afterwards?
Oh, I was just
Yeah.
going to say that I second that. Collaborations are great because especially if somebody's working on a project and they're far ahead, quote unquote, and you can learn what they're doing and what they're doing right too also. And maybe you even have a skill, maybe you're a 3D artist or an animator and collaborate with a project, and then you get the inside scoop and maybe even get one of their NFTs also in payment. Then you can understand on the market and how to expose yourself. In addition to, if they're quite notable, to actually promote your works to also. I'm actually doing that myself. Is a great way to get your foot in the door and expose yourself through others that are influencers and making headway to also. And also remember, this is still quote unquote new. So marketing and advertising is also evolving. Definitely to Joan's point, Clubhouse is an amazing resource. I hear it time and time again. It's still new. We're trying new things. I hear new things too also, whether it's in the DeFi world, in addition to what we're speaking mostly about here in the NFT world too also.
Right. I see a follow-up question from Kevin Jackson.
I
How
think
do I
Marshall
use
was saying
NFTs?
something. Sorry.
Or was it?
Thanks.
Oh,
Right.
sorry. I'm sorry, Marshall. Yes,
Oh,
Mark,
no.
say something, yeah.
Yeah, that's
you can
okay,
also.
Joan. Joan,
No,
thank you.
yeah, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Joan. Thanks, Marcus. Good points by everyone. To add to that, I always think about this in the perspective of, okay, if a dispute happens, what do we do? And so even when you're collaborating, you got to have your agreements in place at the outset, for one, right? And know your rights, for two. Also, if you're collaborating with someone who is not a part of the WTO, who's not a member of the, who's from a country that is not a member of the WTO, who's from a country that is not a member of the Berne Convention. The Berne Convention is that foundational copyright law agreement that most countries have signed on to, but a few have not, right? Then you got to be careful if you're thinking about your copyright interests, because that may determine how the length of your copyright, whether or not you can get artist resale royalties on your work, and so on. And then it depends on what you're offering. So what if it's not music, and if it's not, like a clip about a concert or a video, and it's more related to a product? Think of what Nike is doing now with its sneakers, and it's attached an NFT. First of all, they patented a specific blockchain related to NFT. And then if you purchase the sneaker, then you do have access to this NFT, and you can go online and create your own NFT. So then you see then that the NFT market is open up even to traditional
Product.
manufacturers out there, right? So they can be a part of it. So I would say strategy is important, but don't forget the IP. And when you're thinking about the IP, you can't just think about Jamaica or regionally, but you got to go internationally and look at the framework out there to ensure that at the end of the day, you can not only commercialize your NFT, but if something happens, all right, I have this in place, right? So those are just a few of the issues.
Great point. Great point. Sorry, Marcus.
Sure,
Marshall,
absolutely.
such a great point, and I just want to stress, because she's right. A lot of persons are innovating, and it's kind of wild west, and a lot of works are happening without paperwork or agreements to back it up. And I do think that inevitably we're going to see, and sooner rather than later, the challenges that come from that. And want to share that in the schedule again, there's a sample agreement that we've actually released at Carry Drop for persons to look at to see if it can be tailored for their purposes. Because a lot of persons, creatives, we know, can't begin to pay for attorneys for everything that they're doing. But really and truly, you need to have something guiding you, because as Marsha has shown you, it's a gray area right now where there are lots of shades of gray.
Right. All right. Thanks. So, right. So, Kevin wanted to know follow up in terms of as a content owner, animator, filmmaker, how do I use my NFTs to sell my content or raise funding for my film? So, sale or licensing, or signing or licensing. Can you also explain further how Trevor Noah sold tickets with NFTs? One, so like you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. Sorry. I'll go with the first one, or the last one first, with Trevor Noah and NFTs, just because it's a simple example to explain. And essentially, it's not it wasn't so much about selling tickets with NFTs, but he sold his ticket as an NFT. So the ticket itself, as we know, a lot of shows are happening virtually, and ticket sales are occurring virtually. What he did was actually create create a situation where when you actually purchase the ticket that you purchased, the digital form that came to you, was an NFT. The significance of this and why it makes it a great thing is because, let's look in the traditional world. Normally, if someone has a great show, let's look at Eddie Murphy's Delirious show. That's a famous stand-up show that was done, everybody watches. And if you had a ticket to that show, this would be a very, very exclusive souvenir. And this is something that would appreciate in value over the years. And for someone who is a great Eddie Murphy fan, in years to come, this ticket could be priceless. We don't know how many millions they could or would pay for this. In this setup scenario, what's happened is that now you have NFTs as the tickets. And when in future someone who's a great fan of Trevor Noah wants to buy this souvenir NFT of this great performance that Trevor Noah did in 2021, when they purchase that, not only are they going to be satisfying their desire or need, but Trevor Noah is going to earn. In the first scenario, Trevor Noah doesn't earn. When the real world ticket stub is taken and someone keeps it and then resells it, the person who puts on the show doesn't earn any further. Scenario where
The value of
Trevor
it.
Noah makes his show ticket exactly a collectible, the royalties would come to him, and that's the greater benefit. In terms of how you use NFTs to sell content or raise funding for film, I think again, as has been mentioned by the panelists, there are a variety of strategies, and it's there's no one way. I At Carry Drop, this is what we're positioning ourselves to be able to do to not just pull in and educate the Caribbean, but to assist with strategy. I am an IP attorney, as you know. My partner Christine has extensive experience in marketing, in particular, and it's those two thinking caps that we put down, and working with the first of our clients that we're working with now to develop these exact things, these strategies, because it's virgin territory, it's unfolding. You can look at examples and see what could or may work here, but the truth is that even internationally it's fairly new and things are evolving. So without with yeah, we'd love to speak to you, Kevin, but I suppose a simple way, maybe you're an animator and you sell a collection of the animal that you have created from this family, and they're CryptoPunks or like kind of collections that you could look at to see how it may relate to a character from your film. And I'll stop there. But also, I mean, I did film law as well, and I really see in the future. I know the tax man is going to be interested in this, but it could very well be that that you just allow persons to invest in financing the film through purchasing these NFTs. Like, we actually use them as those kinds of tools, and I think that that's the direction that we're going to see us heading into in the not too short future, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I think
Good
certainly,
point.
looking at issues of regulation, finance
Yeah.
regulation, and such, and tax implications will also be interesting to see how that develops. Sorry,
Can
Marshall,
I
you
add
want to add, please?
Yeah, yeah. Really good point, Joan, that you've raised. Um, can I add to that as well that for in terms of monetizing the NFT, what some developers do is say they'll provide within the agreement, there are terms that say you can commercialize the NFT, so you can sell it or use it in specific forums or platforms or so on, up to a specific monetary value amount, say $300,000 a year or $500,000 a year or so on. So that then gives, and of course, if you're doing so, there is a way for them to take a percentage of that as royalty from what you've gained, right? Um, so that's one aspect of strategy, where in terms of seeing how persons downstream can utilize the NFT. They bought it, they can use it to make funds, to make additional revenue, but at the same time, you're still gaining revenue from what they're doing.
Right, right. So every use has revenue to the owner, which has been a big part of the problem with the IP system, right? That oftentimes uses are, unmanageable. You don't oftentimes know transparently who is licensing or using what, where, and to what extent, and to what value. So it's a big plus in that regard. I wanted to handle.
I think I think Kevin asked a question to Joan about if it's real or wearables. Uh,
Yes, I think is yes, that's true.
so it's not wearables, not like you're wearing a watch. It's not a wearables, but the first one you spelled it.
Yeah,
That's the correct one.
it's wearables to search, Kevin, but read up about wearables, because as an animator and as a designer, Kevin is actually one of the board of the Jamaica Design Association, and wearables is a whole other world that I would love to see us get more active in as well.
And,
Wearables
and,
is defined in that white paper.
and Joan, I think you know what, Carry Drop, or with the collaboration of everything, you should do probably a workshop. So for beginners or people who want to learn and know where to start. I think that should be
100%.
something. Yeah, I think that should be something next that you guys table to the table. Bring forth.
100%. That's we would just have a lot of education, and I'm really grateful again to JIPO for pulling this together. For being as cutting edge as always. I know that I've been deep diving and I learned things from this presentation today. So give thanks.
Right. And Kevin is Open C SEA, as you were also asking.
Love your
Uh,
presentation. White people do really thank you for this information.
yeah.
Awesome, Michelle. Please share.
And the webinar will be available. The recording of it will be available, so persons within all of it can get to review it again. I see a question here for you, Marsha. If a TV series, example Beverly Hillbillies, is already in the public domain, then no one will be able to
Because
apply for the
congrats
series
on the new
to
venture.
be an
Keep on
NFT
as always.
owned
Thanks,
by that
Lisa.
person.
Calendar. She's beautiful. A friend of
Joan?
mine. I liked her. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, sorry. So let me show you that question, Marsha.
Yes, please.
If a TV series, example Beverly Hillbillies, is already in the public domain, then no one will be able to apply for the series to be an NFT owned by that person.
So if it is, I don't know if it's if Beverly Hillbillies is in the public domain. So if it is in the public domain, and then you create something off of that, then you now have a copyright interest in it. So it's free for all right there. You can use it, and your creation of what you have made from it. Ensure also that there is some amount of creativity or ingenuity in what you've done. I'm hearing a background noise. Sorry. Um, ensure that there is some level of creativity in what you've done to the clip to ensure that that copyright interest subsists in it, right? You got to do something different to ensure that it's now generating copyright for you, just in case it's tested in the courts or so on. But if it's in the public domain, that's okay.
Okay. All right. I see a question. Who is responsible for drafting smart contracts? I mean, both you, Marsha and Joan mentioned the smart contracts. So I don't know if
John,
anyone else.
go first.
No, it's so funny. I actually said no, but this is Marsha's baby because this was what I learned a little bit from Marsha
Okay.
on today. Definitely, I haven't drafted a smart contract because Marsha will share more on why. Go for it, Marsha.
So Joan, no worries. So it's really the developer that's drafting the agreement because it's all codes, right? But those codes, really, the foundation of that is actually language, whether it be English or whatever other type of language are being used. Now, because as I said before, it's a free for all. It's unregulated smart contracts in terms of how they are framed. Then you will find that unless consistent standards are applied, it's going to be not really, unless it's a carry drop who is very focused, from what I've learned today, on Caribbean peoples and your own interests. So if the developer is really just thinking about making money for themselves, it's going to be very pro developer, and therefore the clauses that it contains are going to not necessarily reflect what you want. For example, I've had, I got to be careful what I say here, but think about your moral rights. Moral rights are those rights that a copyright is made up of your economic rights that gives you the authorization to rent your work, to sell your work, to decide how you want to deal with your work because it's yours exclusively, right? And it enables you to monetize your music, your film, or so on. The moral rights now you keep, right? You can part with it, but you can waive it in a contract. It has to be written. Otherwise, it remains yours. There are NFT platforms out there that say that you agree that you're waiving your moral rights. And this would be in the smart contract. Now, if you don't read this, hopefully there are fine prints within the website itself before that transaction goes through. Then if an NFT purchaser purchases your work and there is that provision in the agreement giving them the ability to change something about the NFT, they may be using it on a site that you're not to, it is deviates from your
Mm.
own political beliefs, because the moral rights is it, you could be against a certain political uh issue. It could be used on a pornographic site or so on, something that is contrary to your own personhood. And so it's very you got to be careful that you're dealing with a reputable NFT minter out there. Do your checks.
Okay, okay.
Oh, one more thing. So because a lot of this is really designed to have the lawyering out of it, that's why it's also important to do the legwork.
Mhm. So yes, certainly removing the middlemen sometimes remove the lawyers from the process. But fear not, lawyers. There's additional work in other areas, right? I wanted to ask Andel and Richard, from your experience um, in the sector, what do you see as being some of the challenges, for us in Jamaica and the Caribbean, being able to maximize the opportunities that this technology presents?
Man, I think I can speak on that.
Oh, I,
Uh,
I would say the challenges are pretty much the same challenge that everybody's having worldwide, really. You know, um, unless it depends on the restrictions, which I can't really speak to. Are there any restrictions with? Sometimes you can circumvent that. Let's talk about DeFi first. There are restrictions in New York that maybe is in Jamaica too. Also, I can't buy certain currencies. However, I use a VPN and get on a certain exchange, which I won't mention, that is based somewhere else. Because I'm based in New York, I can use a VPN where it says I'm actually somewhere else and actually be able to purchase certain cryptocurrencies and be able to do leveraging and do derivatives where I can leverage just like banks. They can leverage how much money they have a certain amount of times, whether it's 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, or 10 times. So there's ways around ways around it um, when there are certain restrictions, such as those due to location.
Okay. Okay.
I'd say, and piggyback on what Richard said. Yes, and it has a whole lot to do with regulation. As you know, the whole crypto market is not regulated itself, so having access to certain cryptocurrencies or certain trading platforms are not allowed in certain region, and that's why you have to undertake using a VPN to access these. Now, one of the things is that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to bring cryptocurrency to Jamaica. We are in the process. We've actually did a few interviews with a few banking sector who has our applications in, and because there's certain channels we have to go through to get it there. And right now, the application that we did is sitting, I think, between the BOJ sandbox in terms of regularity. So um, to get this into Jamaica, reason being, there's a few reasons. One, you take Jamaica, 70% of the population is unbanked, and I think crypto solves so much here for so many people in different communities, because majority of these people who are unbanked, they do have smartphones, and also remittance also is huge in terms of crypto when you're talking about sending and receiving funds, and limiting these high fees. So it's a huge opportunity in Jamaica, but regulatory is the issue, and the banking sector clamping down and allowing people access, and that's one of the things.
Yes, yes. Right. We know
Yeah.
that the central bank certainly has had reservations, about cryptocurrencies, And so I think this is an ongoing discussion that will be had, as things develop, and certainly as their digital currency, is tested and tried, I think there'll be an openness increasingly, hopefully. So I think it's part of a need to reassess IP as an asset, as an intangible asset, as a digital asset, looking at its flexibility and particular, um, flexibilities and opportunities that it has as a non-tangible. So I think there's certainly more work there to be done. I don't know if you want to share on this as well, Marsha and Joan. What are some of the challenges you foresee at present? That or gaps that we would need to address in the region with this concern.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna cut off at any minute because I'm on 1% battery, unfortunately, on my laptop. But I do address the challenges in the paper I mentioned before. Just to summarize here, challenge.
Oh, we lost Joan. We lost Joan.
Oh,
Oh
oh.
gosh.
Okay,
Well,
well,
as you know, you can hear Joan's perspective or read it in the paper. She mentioned on the card drop site, so maybe she'll be able to join
I
us.
wonder if she
We're
can
gonna
text it to one of us.
in the WhatsApp group. Maybe she can. Maybe she can. Maybe can you message her, Richard, to that effect, But Marsha, please.
yeah, I yeah, I wanted to was looking forward to
A
hear
messenger in the chat.
to Joan's to hear what Joan had to say, but we can also read her white paper as well. Uh, the first I think is awareness and outreach is important, right? So whether this be in the form of workshops, seminars, but we all need to be educated more, not just on NFTs but blockchain. Um, and
Yes.
if we, I've written a paper, a couple of papers on the integration of blockchain, not only with NFTs, but also in terms of other IP intensive industries, for example, trademark based industries and geographical indications, although, based industries as well. From that perspective, you're thinking about the provenance and the verifying the provenance of goods and the authenticity of products and so on, which are really important because most consumers want to know where their goods are coming from, right? That's really important, especially now. Um, so the gaps I see, one is being everyone being aware of what these technological innovations are, but also there are also regulatory gaps. If we're thinking about how blockchain technologies and the distributed ledger technologies sit within or mainstream perspectives and laws on intellectual property and even other securities legislation, there are big gaps out there. And because of the objective of blockchains, there will always be those gaps, right? Realistically, there will be those gaps. Blockchain will not be what it is seeking to be if these gaps are filled, because the objective of blockchain is to bypass mainstream forms of doing business. I've written about the fact that even there's some platforms that are even working to register trademarks and copyright, right? So that would get rid of what IP offices do, right? So it's we got to think, okay, not just nationally what has to be done or regionally, but internationally as well. Are there specific soft laws that perhaps WIPO could be developed at the WIPO stage? So then there needs to be this dialogue then at the international level on possible challenges and how to address these at the international level, whether it be standards or soft laws or something. Those are my few points to date on this.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I think we
If I'm,
all agree that there's need for more discussion and information. Sure. Is that Richard? You wanna go ahead?
yeah, if I may, a short story. I was speaking to my aunt in Jamaica this morning, and she collects my rent for a home that I share with my brothers in Portland. And the bank was asking her, they're asking the questions like, where is this money coming from? And she had to go to a JP and get a document saying that it was for collecting rent. So, but with decentralized finance, you don't have to answer these questions. Somebody just sends you from their wallet to your wallet, the rent payment, and no questions asked. I thought that was very fascinating that you have to answer questions of the own money transactions that you're putting in their bank that they're using to actually make money off, and they're still asking you questions.
Right. I
I think
mean,
it's pretty incredible. Yeah. And another point also is the narrative of sending money with little or no fees. The banking institutions are looking at that, and I personally bank with I won't say the institution that now to send money internationally is actually free now with the institution that I bank with. So they see the power of blockchain technology and in its use in the cryptoverse with cryptocurrency, that individuals and groups of individuals using DeFi is their competition now. So just as everybody has said, educate yourself, because there is power in the knowledge of decentralized finance, and in addition to NFTs, to where now you can set up your own gallery. You don't have to pay gallery fees. um, you know, going into the metaverse and creating your own metaverse or just your own gallery. So, yeah, this is, I'm excited for the future and excited for, that the initiative for Jamaicans and in Jamaica and the whole diaspora where Jamaicans live and reside throughout the entire world.
So that's very interesting. Can I add to that, Richard, or that traditional institutions then will have to rethink what their mandates are going forward,
Yes,
right? Uh,
yes.
because if we're living
Adapt
in
or lose money.
traditional institutions will have to rethink this, but also, emerging players in the market, whether it be so not just now focusing on Bitcoin per se, but in terms of NFTs and so on.
Mhm.
So, what's the role of the intellectual property offices worldwide? What's the role of WIPO? What's the role of other institutions? Securities, unfair
Yes,
competition. There, yeah, there has to be some
absolutely.
discussion and mandate going forward. It can no longer be avoided. And every country's grappling with this. It's new and it's evolving and interesting and of concern to some persons and institutions as well.
Right.
mm,
And to your point, Marsha, as people that come up with either developing their own blockchain and cornering, let's just say cornering a section of the market, you will get either government or regulations knocking at your door to adopt that. Hopefully it's a big, maybe a big company to adopt. Like you hear it time and time again. One company buying another. Go what was it? Facebook buying WhatsApp. Because there was a corner in the market in messaging. Just as with NFTs, you may be cornering the market in in IP. You know, they're all coming to Canaan Bridge Consulting with regards to RIP, because you got such a volume that you've actually um, created a system that is actually working, and and exploding at an exponential rate that they have to come to you.
Right. I see a comment here in the chat that what about those who are old-fashioned or used to doing things in the old school way? Because there's
And
no
Marcus, I just read that and I wanted to answer that
please,
because
yes.
I have data on something like that because we track, or people who are involved with crypto and who are looking to buy crypto, all that stuff. And what we've seen is baby boomers are the ones who are actually taking advantage of this technology itself, or even using crypto. When we collect data, because we collect data from our machines and see, who our buyers are, who make sure are unique buyers, and baby boomers are the number one. They're understanding this and saying, the more technical aspect of it, breaking down the blockchain and how it works. Yes, we may have to probably dumb it down for them a little bit so they can understand it, but they're understanding the value of inflation and putting their money into crypto and knowing that 10, 15 years from now when they're ready to retire, what's it going to look like in terms of having your money in the market, because you don't know, and hedging against inflation itself. So baby boomers are now getting hip to it. They're getting understanding. They're doing classes, they're doing courses, but the technical aspect of it, yes, we can actually do it in layman's terms so they can fully understand it.
Yeah, so we can have our Caribbean people fully maximize the
Right.
opportunities too, right?
And to piggyback on what was said by Marsha and Richard about, one of the things that's happening now, and it was passed earlier this year in January 1st, banks are putting in custodianship measures to hold your crypto. So you remember when we say crypto is supposed to be, you are your bank, you're powered. We're cutting out the middleman. But what the banks are doing is using the fear tactics of saying, hey, um, you know, you might lose your keys. You don't want to hold your crypto. Just like you open a bank account with us, you can actually open your crypto account with us, and we're the bank, we're secure, we'll hold it for you, we'll give you insurance on it, and they charge you a fee to hold your coins. And you have to understand the power that blockchain and crypto gives you is to have the power in your hands of being your own bank and being your own. I mean, as Marshall says, unfortunately, blockchain allows you to cut out the lawyers, but you definitely still going to need your lawyers to consult with certain things and how to put your contracts together and all that stuff. But yeah, it allows you to put the power back in your own hands itself. So don't be scared in terms of the tactics of what's happening, in terms of saying, hey, you got to hold your coins over here or with us because you don't want to lose your keys. Also, there's wallets now that, because we're also a part of the first wallet, crypto multi-sig wallet, that offers you insurance. So you can be comfortable knowing that your keys are insured and your coins are insured, and that you can actually do it yourself, being your own bank. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think and
I'm
as we
glad
wrap
you
up,
brought that up, and some practical things that an individual needs to know, and know they have access to for insurance. Because I mean, traditionally, and when you're banking, you have, well, here in New York, FDIC is federally protected, but now you have something that is decentralized. How is that protected? That's a very good point. And in addition to those that are still old school, that's why I'm a big believer in like families or community, that maybe the younger generation can teach the older generation, but in a way that it's simple, that is and user friendly, and they can associate with what they know in the past, and how to bring the past into the future, what it is today. Just like evangelizing. I'm a Christian evangelist, but you just don't do it any old way. You use associations. If anybody's going through the Bible, they use certain terms. In the agrarian society, use certain terms and examples. Of that particular time and place, just as those are the old school maybe examples of how to explain it in a way that they would understand.
Yes, so many questions. I have a lot more to ask, but I think we're gonna wrap it up right there. I think we're gonna have some more discussions. Certainly we want the central bank to be a part of this discussion too. We want to know again any tax implications, any sort of you know, anti-money laundering implications, and all of those are questions which I think are going to be live issues, which people would want to just be clear about. I think sometimes for many of us, if you're not into the space and the technological terms, when you hear cryptocurrency, and you think of something cryptic and you think of a dark web and it sounds all very, as you say, and scary, right? So I think, yeah, persons want to hear that they don't need to be fearful. It's not something that you need to have a, PhD to understand. You can, you know, try and, as you say, take your
And I,
chances,
and I think
strategize. You know?
Right. And I think that's what also the banks are scared of, because that's what we're dealing with when we're looking to expand and open into the other countries. The banks, especially in Jamaica, I was grilled probably 3 different meetings by a panel about 8 people from 2 different banks where, they wanted to know our compliance policy because, as everybody ties crypto to illicit activities and don't understand that fiat currency also does illicit
Sure.
activities. You know what I mean?
Right.
But operators like us, we do have measures in place the same way banks does when you're opening an account to know, or you do full KYC, and so we can do full KYC at our machines right there, but it takes about 2 minutes. And so we can know who our customer is and know where they're coming from and all that stuff. So the idea of saying contributing to anti-money laundering and all that money laundering and stuff, we're taking measures and continue to take measures and continue to stay on top of new technologies to do so. So I think the sectors regulators can feel comfortable knowing that we're part of the ecosystem. That's it. We're part of
Yeah.
an ecosystem that's coming, and we can actually allow people to be, part of it and take advantage of it because they need to, definitely.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Now,
All
what
right.
comes to mind when I hear? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, man. Yeah, I'll give you and then Marsha the final words.
Yeah, when I hear money laundering, um, the question is, who's the one concerned about money laundering, and why? The question, the answer that comes to me is the banking institutions because they're losing money. But with decentralized finance, right? It's they're losing they're losing money because an individual and or a family can do the same thing as a banking institution can, whether it's lending money or doing flash loans. Or flash loan is basically sorry, I'm getting a little technical here, is buying on one exchange and selling on another, and profiting on the spread between the difference at large leverage sums of money. Or staking, you have your money placed somewhere and it's used somewhere, just like a bank is using that money somewhere for investments, and you get for a period of time, a locked period of time, and you retain interest. Or just those products alone that banks do, you can actually do it as a family, group of people, or an individual.
And you're right.
Yes.
There's so many power. There's not getting the knowledge. You realize how many power you have within yourself, and can take full control of your own, investment, your own, as he says, staking. But one of the things I laugh about, and what the banks are scared about, one of the things I smile about was I saw the minting of the coin in Jamaica and heard the currency president or CEO spoke. I forgot his name, and they asked this. So your currency is not utilizing the blockchain. Why? And the first thing out of his mouth is that the blockchain is not safe. And I'm like, I mean, who says that? I mean, because you're trying to educate people, and the first thing you're saying the blockchain is not safe, which is not true. Because the blockchain is the most mutable, safe platform there is, unhackable platform. And so, but the real story is behind it is say that we want to control it. It's a centralized currency, so we want to control it. And that's the aspect of it. They just don't want you to know that, okay, we don't utilize blockchain because blockchains allow us to be more transparent with a ledger, and doing it this way, it's more controlled. So, and that's it.
All right, Marshall, I'm gonna let you have the final word first. This.
Yeah, such a very lively discussion that could actually go on for longer, but we're probably too tired of looking at our screens. So very quickly, just to somewhat recap what's already been said. If you notice, we spoke about different aspects of uses of the blockchain and distributed ledger technology. We looked at the Bitcoin aspects and implications. We looked at NFTs. What we have not looked at is, using blockchain within a supply chain dynamics, because there's a lot of interest there as well by food and beverage industries to use it to kind of verify and authenticate that their products are coming from this specific region. And that's particularly important if the value chain is located in different places around the world, and you want to ensure that shrimp from, say, Thailand or Vietnam is really coming from there, or a specific product from Jamaica is really coming from Jamaica, and so on. In terms of intellectual property, then you can see that the more you think about these things very deeply, that there are different aspects of it. There are things that the business can do. So if you're an entrepreneur, that you can think about on a firm level IP strategy. There's also things that you can think about from a larger macro level, from a national innovation, Jamaican innovation policy perspective. And so awareness is very important. Just read and ask questions. Feel free to get in touch with any of us. I'm sure any of us will be happy to answer any of your questions as well. I would say the platform is here to stay until the next big tech innovation, and we can see that we're living in a time of disruption, right? So it's just, how do we then reorientate our thinking and our own institutions to deal with these emerging platforms? Those are my final words.
All right, all right, all right. Thank you so much,
And Marshall.
Marsha. And thank you, Richard. Thank you, Andel. Right. I want to thank Joan. I want to thank, of course, your organizations, CoinBridge, Canaan Bridges, and Carry Drop as well. Really interesting. There's a lot of interest in this topic locally. I think persons really want to better understand it because we see the opportunities that it presents. And of course, financially, sort of royalties, sort of IP management, and revenue collection, etc. I think it really has a lot of opportunities that we need to explore in more detail. We have a poll that we've just launched. Mr. Hope, you're going to launch that poll, please. Yes, we have the poll. We're going to ask you to take a few minutes just to share with us some feedback on this webinar as we seek to continuously improve. But again, I want to thank our panelists. I'm sorry that Joan lost battery power there. She needs to try
Oh,
some.
I got a message from Joan. I was asking her about the challenges. So she messaged, she was saying the challenge is connectivity, like the internet is from Jamaica, and suspicion. So I guess it's like the access to, internet for Jamaica. In some places, like in country, maybe you don't have such great internet, or it could be economically you can't get to the internet, and I guess the suspicion because it's so new, and it's not mass market yet. So those are Joan's input I'm doing for her.
Yes, yes. I think we just were talking about so many mistrust issues just there now. So yeah, definitely, definitely. I think but as always, as Jamaicans, as Caribbean people, we're open to ideas and to technology and innovation. And once we get the grasp of it,
Yep.
you can't hold us back, you know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to see, we can grasp this technology here now,
Yeah.
it's less costly to go to market, right? And less problems again of exploitation, which has plagued our IP industry, particularly the music industry, I would say historically,
Mhm.
and so a lot of pluses to it, that I think need to be examined. So I think we'll certainly be having more discussions on these topics. Again, I want to thank you all as panelists and for our audience members too for staying here with us after the assigned time. So enjoy the rest of your
Honored to be
afternoons.
here.
Yes, we will have the recording available on JIPO Online, our YouTube channel. And please, hopefully, we'll have the presentations also available with the consent of presenters. Thanks again and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. Thank you all.
You too.
All right.